This episode of Tekzilla is brought to you by Netflix. Time to get our HD Nation on. You got a port-challenged HDTV, maybe a single lone HDMI port on the back of your big screen. You need an HDMI switch. And if you're the person that's always fixing everybody's home theater in the block, you should have an HDMI switch in your toolbox ready to go because they're cheap and help people out. I mean, HDMI switch turns one port into many.
Totally. And without loss of quality with HDMI switching. It's great. That's one of the best benefits about HDMI. It's an all-digital format for audio and video signals. So when you add something like this port switch, which actually gives you multiple ports into one, you're retaining full quality. You're not losing any quality with this, like you would say with an analog distribution device, typically speaking. And I have here some examples of everything from the low end to the high end.
I got a question. Back in the day, it used to be a lot of either manual switches, ka-chunk, or having to program, like have a switch for the remote, or program your Harmony or other universal remote to control the switch when you switch devices. Are they auto switching now?
All of them, at all price points. It's shocking. I was looking at things from products from say about the $12 range on up to a beautiful $500 DVDO EDGE Green. They all provide similar HDMI functionality in terms of supporting things like 3D. Also, your new audio formats, your lossless formats like DTS HD Master Audio and Dolby True HD, as well as just providing that port replication. Starting with the DVDO EDGE, it's really the high-end device if you're talking about switching products. We've talked about its brethren, the regular DVDO EDGE. This is now the EDGE Green.
I'm petting it because the texture is so lovely.
Ignore the product on top here.
This is a switch. It is a scaling device. It is
a high-end video processor. This actually incorporates DVDO and Anchor, I believe Anchor-based technology, their best video processing technology into this box. And as you can see right here on their webpage as we scroll down, examples of what this can do for analog sources where you have noise in the picture, things like that, it can do a pretty darn good job of cleaning up. Also for taking care of improperly processed progressive sources, it can actually undo it, repair it, and put it back out there.
Wow.
Things like lip sync correction, scaling functions like you mentioned. If you want to really get rid of black bars, this thing can actually adjust the picture per pixel to scale it however you want. If you want to overscan it, go right ahead. If it's overscanned and you don't want that way, it can bring the picture back down.
It's probably more powerful than the scaler that is built in your HDTV or your Blu-ray
Most likely.
player.
The big benefit too with a product like the DVDO EDGE, as you might have noticed on the back port connections that showed there in the graphic, was that it supports analog devices, something your typical inexpensive HDMI switch won't. We're talking not only in addition to the 5 HDMI inputs, 2 component video inputs, composite video input, as well as S-video as well, and coaxial and optical audio inputs, a dedicated optical output, HDMI audio output dedicated as well. So a very functional device in terms of being able to connect a variety of devices and then put the output the way you want for audio and video. This does all the conversion. The DVDO EDGE Green really wants to do all the converting to a digital format, spit it all out via HDMI as far as the video goes. You can do the audio a couple different ways, but this is that device that does that analog and digital conversion and gets it all into the digital domain with all the picture controls and scaling and everything else you talked about, or we mentioned. But, you know, maybe you just want to add more ports to your TV, and that's really all you need to do.
Not everybody's got 5. If all you need to do is switch, this is not your toy.
Probably
and when
not.
I say toy, I mean professional grade tool for scaling video.
That you can also take a look at some of the latest AV receivers as well that incorporate functionality. Not only AV switching, usually just HDMI. Some are also incorporating analog video switching as well. But that analog to digital video conversion, doing that is really not a cheap feature to do that well. So most of the inexpensive AV receivers out there do HDMI switching, but they won't do processing or conversion very well, or switching let alone for your analog sources. Now, the other cool stuff for the EDGE Green real quick, it incorporates some great setup test patterns. We mentioned the per picture controls. If you're doing things like you want to, rather than adjust the TV, you have per picture input controls for adjusting the picture per device, basically, as well as all your video processing and functions as well. But for
$600 super box.
Yeah, $500.
$500 super box.
Awesome if you don't already have something that gives you similar functionality. But stuff like, let's talk about Kinovo, maybe a brand you've never heard of. The 301BM HDMI switch is actually, I have it hanging back here off the TV. Currently operating, I actually have all of these devices chained together. A little nuts, actually. The 301BN model, that actually is a 3-port input, 1-port output.
$32.
32 bucks. They have a 5-port model, actually, for $5 more. I'd probably just spend the extra $5 to have a few more ports. The nicest packaging of the low-cost receivers like that, of the low-cost HDMI switches that I looked at, it also includes an IR remote that I suggest you just don't even bother with. Since these are auto switching, leave the little battery protector tab in there and just ignore that altogether. You literally should, if you set it up right, never need the remote control. I also found, also I mentioned too, this is a powered switch. It comes with the power adapter. So if you're doing an extra long run, this will actually regenerate that signal and blast it out full power again. Whereas the more less expensive devices, a couple of generic ones I found, a device like this for 12 bucks. This company rebranded it as.
And it's funny, you found like 2 or 3 super generic rebranded boxes. Were they all the same box pretty much? Or?
No, I mean, well, this one was. But to get an idea of how an auto switch like this works, here we have a Blu-ray player and a PS3 currently hooked up, both powered on. It's currently set to the PS3, but I could manually select it, or it actually comes with a remote. So I can manually switch to, say, the device connected to number 1, or in this case, it's the TV switches. Come on, Blu-ray player. There it goes. I don't know what movie this is offhand. But then say, if I'm done watching that movie and I just go ahead and unplug it, boop, the device then, pretending that powered down, it would then switch to the other active device, which goes back to the PS3. Likewise, then say that Blu-ray player is, we'll just pretend my cable box, and I powered it back on. It should, if I plug it back in, detect the signal's active, automatically switch over to that active port.
But
Like
basically,
magic.
in that case, though, I have to shut down one device while the other one's on.
Totally, and they typically go by number. So port 1, if you have an always-on device like a cable box or a satellite box, plug that into number 1. That way, if number 2 or 3 ports become active, it'll switch to that. And then when those ports become deactivated later on, when you turn those devices off, it switches right back.
This is one of the places where something like a Harmony remote, where you're like, I want to watch Blu-ray, and then it'll send out the signal to that and your HDTV and your Blu-ray player, because it's kind of frustrating if you know, device 1 is always on. You know, you're going to have to manually, you're either going to have to use the IR remote or walk across the room to go to device 2 or device 3.
You won't, though.
Really?
No, but keep it on port 1. Okay. And that way that device is always on. If 2 or 3 are ever triggered on, it will automatically switch to that, even if 1 is still on. So then if 2 or 3 then turn off, it'll go back up the chain to number 1, or eventually to number 1, to that device. And if you're dealing with a Harmony remote, universal, you can almost ignore these devices because they're handling the auto switching. Say I'm using only port 1 on my TV, the input. I would then connect the switch to that port. I never really have to change the port on the TV then. It's always going to be using port 1. As long as the devices are powering on and off correctly, the switch will be able to handle switching to which correct device to have on. And in the case of the Harmony, you just say, hey, when I'm doing the setup, make sure that it just turns off the devices that aren't in use, ensure that the device that you need on is on, and then the switch will automatically deal with it. And it's pretty straightforward that way. Another benefit of just having a handy product like this, ranging from $12 to $500, that, you know, it's not that hard to integrate this into your existing setup. And if you have one of those older HDTVs that are value priced with that single HDMI port, you almost need one of these devices. And if you're reaching constantly behind the TV to unplug and plug something in because you only have that one port, this 12 bucks is gonna, you know, it's gonna help you a lot, and there's no reason not to. So.
If you don't have a Switch, you should get one. New 2012 HDTVs are finally arriving in stores. Those amazing screens we showed you at CES 2 months ago are beginning to appear online and in brick-and-mortar retailers. Is the ES8000, the Samsung's flagship, is that the one you're most excited to see?
I'm just happy to see that their flagship's actually shipping. It's not the largest size yet,
right?
But I want to say the 46 and the 55-inch models are currently shipping. My good friends over at Big Picture Big Sound also mentioned that the new Panasonic 2012 TVs are starting to ship. Actually, their entry-level plasmas, as well as some of their new LCDs, are shipping as well. We're waiting, though, on the GT and the VT series. They're super high-end, super inky dark plasmas to start shipping later this year from Panasonic. But the new products are shipping. Also, LG and Sony are also getting their initial 2012 TV offerings into the chain as well. I'm seeing some of their products, but not the high-end stuff from anybody yet, except for Samsung and the mid sizes for their new ES8000, which is just going to be dynamite. Basically, that top feature for 2012, in particular, I'm talking about the ES8000 and some of the other top TVs coming out. They're going to have essentially a Kinect, a Microsoft-like Kinect device in every TV. call that my quote there. Yeah, gesture, voice control, as
Channel
well
up.
as
Channel down.
user recognition. You'll be able to yell and wave at your TV, and hopefully it'll do what you say. The best
down.
LCDs from Sony and LG will offer that full array LED lighting technology. Everything else is going edge lit to save cost.
Wow.
All coming this summer. And of course, we're waiting for the OLED showdown of 2012. Basically going LG versus Samsung for whose OLED panel will be king of this year. So.
Reviews as soon as they send us the TVs to test.
Yep, and Sharp continues to tease me with that 80-inch TV of theirs. It's actually, they wrote me this week and said it's coming, so we'll have that for you as soon as possible. But 80 inches. You take 4 55-inch panels and put them all together, that's about what an 80-inch panel is. It's
a big piece of glass. There you have it.
Yeah. And now it's time to thank one of our sponsors, Netflix. With more than 23 million members, Netflix is the world's largest subscription service, instantly streaming TV episodes and movies. Members can instantly watch thousands of titles on a vast array of devices, streaming TV episodes and movies like Microsoft's Xbox 360, Sony's PlayStation 3 game console, and the Nintendo Wii console. As a Netflix Unlimited member, you can instantly watch as many movies as you want, anytime you want, for one low monthly price. There are no late fees or due dates, and for a limited time, as a new member and a Tekzilla viewer, you can get a free 30-day trial membership. Go to netflix.com/Tekzilla and sign up. Be sure to use this URL so that they know we sent you. Netflix is now available in the UK and Ireland. Our viewers there can get the same free trial as in the US. Just check out netflix.co.uk/Tekzilla or netflix.ie/Tekzilla.